This is the internal campaign memo they tried to bury. This is the polling data that Trump's advisors begged him not to ignore. This is the strategic decision that political analysts are now calling the single biggest unforced error in modern presidential campaign history. Breaking news from inside the Trump 2026 re-election campaign confirms what insiders have been whispering about for weeks. The campaign is in complete meltdown. Thursday evening, January 22nd, 2026, at 8:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Trump's campaign manager submitted his resignation effective immediately. Brad Parscale, who ran Trump's digital operation in 2016 and returned to manage the 2024 campaign, sent a 3-page letter to Trump explaining that he could no longer, in good conscience, lead a campaign that refuses to acknowledge political reality. Sources who have seen the letter, speaking to Axios and Politico, say that Parscale was brutally blunt. He told Trump that his decision to fight the New York asset seizures instead of settling them has destroyed any chance of re-election. He told Trump that voters do not care about his legal battles. They care about the economy, immigration, and national security. By making his personal legal drama the center of his presidency, Trump has lost the narrative. He has lost independence. He has lost suburban women. He has lost college-educated voters. He has even started losing non-college-educated white men, his core demographic. The campaign is over. Trump cannot win. Parscale's resignation is not just one staffer walking away. It is the campaign manager, the person responsible for strategy and execution, publicly declaring that victory is impossible. Within hours of Parscale's departure, 3 senior advisors also resigned. The communications director, the policy director, the deputy campaign manager, all cited the same reason. Trump refuses to listen to political advice. He is consumed by his legal troubles. He makes every decision based on personal grievance rather than electoral strategy. And the biggest mistake, the decision that will end his campaign, happened 3 weeks ago. On January 2nd, Trump was presented with a settlement offer from Letitia James. The offer was confidential. It has never been publicly disclosed, but sources familiar with the negotiations told the Washington Post what was on the table. James offered to accept $150 million in cash and the surrender of 2 non-iconic properties in exchange for dropping the entire $464 million judgment. Trump could keep Trump Tower. He could keep Mar-a-Lago. He could keep 40 Wall Street. But he would have to give up Seven Springs Estate and a commercial property in Westchester. He would have to pay $150 million, roughly 1/3 of the judgment, and he would have to sign a statement acknowledging that he inflated property values, though not admitting criminal intent. Trump's lawyers urged him to take the deal. His campaign advisors begged him to take it. His family even told him to take it. The deal would have ended the asset seizures. It would have removed the legal crisis from the headlines. It would have allowed Trump to pivot back to his campaign message. But Trump refused. He viewed the settlement as surrender. He viewed the acknowledgement of inflated values as humiliation. He believed that if he fought long enough, he could win in court or pressure New York to back down. He was wrong. And that decision, that refusal to settle on January 2nd, is the mistake that will end his campaign. Buckle up. We are about to dissect how one man's ego destroyed his own re-election chances and why political strategists will study this as a case study in self-sabotage for generations. To understand why the settlement refusal was so catastrophic, you need to understand where Trump's campaign stood on January 2nd versus where it stands now. On January 2nd, Trump was still politically viable. His approval rating was 41%. Not great, but not disqualifying. His disapproval was 54%. High, but he won in 2024 with similar numbers by focusing on the economy and immigration. The Republican base was still mostly unified behind him. The New York legal case was a problem, but it was one problem among many. Trump's campaign strategy for 2026 was to focus on Biden's economic failures, the border crisis, and rising crime in cities. They planned to portray Democrats as soft on immigration and weak on law and order. They had polling showing that these messages resonated with swing voters. Internal campaign polling from late December 2025 showed Trump trailing the likely Democratic nominee by only 3 points nationally. In a polarized electorate, 3 points is nothing. The race was a toss-up. If Trump could execute a disciplined campaign focused on issues voters cared about, he had a real path to victory. But to execute that strategy, he needed to get the New York case off the front page. He needed to make it go away so voters would focus on his message instead of his legal troubles. The settlement offer on January 2nd was his chance. For $150 million and two properties he rarely used, he could have ended the crisis. His advisors ran the numbers. Polls showed that if the legal drama ended, Trump's approval would recover by 4 to 6 points. Swing voters who were turned off by the chaos would come back. The campaign could shift attention to Biden and the Democrats. Trump would be the favorite to win re-election. Trump rejected the advice. He refused the settlement. And over the next 3 weeks, everything collapsed. The bond agency pulled out. The Supreme Court denied his stay application. The FBI raided his properties. Federal criminal indictments were returned. The Secret Service director resigned. NATO questioned American reliability. The story became Trump's legal meltdown, not Trump's policy agenda. By January 23rd, Trump's approval rating had dropped to 34%. His disapproval had risen to 61%. Those are historically catastrophic numbers. No president has ever won re-election with a 34% approval rating. Internal campaign polling now shows Trump trailing by 14 points nationally. He is losing swing states by double digits. He is losing states that he won in 2024. Florida is now a toss-up. Texas is competitive. Ohio is leaning Democrat. The map has completely flipped, and it all traces back to January 2nd. If Trump had settled, the legal crisis would have faded. If the legal crisis had faded, his approval would have stabilized. If his approval had stabilized, he would still have a path to victory. Instead, he chose ego over strategy. He chose fighting over winning, and he destroyed his own campaign. Let's talk about the internal campaign dynamics, because the chaos inside Trump's re-election operation is just as devastating as the external polling. Political campaigns require discipline, strategy, and unity. The Trump 2026 campaign has none of those. Campaign staff have been reduced to crisis management. They spend their days responding to Trump's latest legal development or inflammatory statement. They have no time to focus on voter outreach, message development, or ground game operations. Fundraising has collapsed. Major donors have stopped giving. In the fourth quarter of 2025, the Trump campaign raised $87 million. In the first 3 weeks of January 2026, they have raised $11 million. That is an 85% drop. The money has dried up because donors do not want to be associated with a candidate who is facing federal criminal indictment and asset seizures. Wealthy Republicans are quietly shifting their money to other candidates. They are betting that Trump will not be the nominee in 2028, and they want to build relationships with whoever comes next. The campaign cannot buy TV ads. They cannot hire field organizers. They cannot compete. Internally, staff morale is non-existent. Campaign employees are updating their resumes. Many are looking for exit strategies. They know that working on a losing campaign is bad for their careers. They know that being associated with Trump's legal troubles is toxic. They want out. But they cannot quit en masse without creating a news story that would further damage Trump. So they stay miserable and demoralized, waiting for the campaign to officially collapse. The policy team has given up trying to shape Trump's agenda. Every time they prepare talking points on the economy or immigration, Trump goes off script and rants about the deep state or the rigged courts. Voters do not hear a policy message. They hear an angry man obsessed with his own victimhood. The communications team is in a similar position. They draft statements designed to appeal to swing voters. Trump ignores them and posts on social media attacking judges, prosecutors, and anyone he perceives as disloyal. The social media posts get more attention than the official statements. The campaign has lost control of its own message. The campaign schedule has been decimated. Trump was supposed to hold rallies in key swing states throughout January. Most have been canceled because Trump is too consumed with legal meetings to travel. The few rallies that have occurred have been sparsely attended. Crowds that used to number in the tens of thousands are now a few thousand. The energy is gone. Even the most loyal MAGA supporters are exhausted by the constant legal drama. The ground game is non-existent. Campaigns win elections by identifying supporters and making sure they vote. This requires data, volunteers, and organization. The Trump campaign has none of it. They have not invested in voter data. They have not recruited volunteers. They have not built the infrastructure necessary to compete in a modern election. They assumed Trump's personality and media coverage would be enough. It is not. Meanwhile, Democratic campaigns are running circles around them. Democrats have spent months building databases, training volunteers, and organizing in swing districts. They have a massive infrastructure advantage, and they are using it to identify and turn out every possible Democratic voter. The contrast is stark. Democrats are running a professional operation. Republicans are running a chaotic vanity project centered on one man's legal troubles. Now let's examine the voter data because the numbers tell a story of complete electoral collapse across every demographic group. Start with Trump's base. Non-college educated white men over 50 were Trump's most loyal demographic. In 2024, he won them by 35 points. As of January 2026, he is winning them by only 18 points. That is a 17-point swing. These are voters who should be automatic Trump supporters, but even they are wavering because they are tired of the chaos. Suburban women, particularly college-educated suburban women, have completely abandoned Trump. In 2024, he lost this group by 12 points. In January 2026, he is losing them by 31 points. That is a 19-point swing. These are swing voters who determine elections. Trump has lost them entirely. Hispanic voters are also moving away. In 2024, Trump made gains with Hispanic voters, particularly Hispanic men, by focusing on economic issues. He won 42% of the Hispanic vote, a historic high for a Republican. In January 2026, his Hispanic support has dropped to 28%. That is a 14-point collapse. Hispanic voters are not interested in Trump's legal drama. They want to hear about jobs and inflation. Trump is not talking about those issues, so they are moving to Democrats. Even white evangelical Christians, Trump's most reliable base, are showing cracks. In 2024, Trump won 81% of white evangelicals. In January 2026, that number is down to 73%. An 8-point drop may not sound like much, but in a tight election, it is the difference between winning and losing. These voters are not switching to Democrats. They are just unenthusiastic. They might stay home on Election Day. Senior citizens are another disaster. Voters over 65 used to lean Republican. In 2024, Trump won them by 4 points. In January 2026, he is losing them by 8 points. That is a 12-point swing. Seniors are concerned about stability and competence. Trump's legal chaos scares them. They do not want a president who cannot govern because he is consumed by personal legal battles. Independents, the true swing voters, have moved decisively against Trump. In 2024, Trump lost independents by 6 points, but still won the election because his base turnout was high. In January 2026, he is losing independents by 22 points. That is a 16-point swing. No candidate can win a national election while losing independents by 22 points. The data is consistent across every demographic. Trump is bleeding support. The only question is whether the collapse is permanent or whether he can recover. Political strategists believe it is permanent. Once voters decide a candidate is unfit, they rarely change their minds. Trump has been defined as chaotic, unstable, and consumed by personal legal troubles. That image is now baked into voter perceptions. No amount of advertising or messaging can fix it. Let's discuss the down ballot impact, because Trump's collapse is not just destroying his own campaign. It is destroying the entire Republican Party. Senate Republicans are facing a catastrophic election cycle. There are 23 Republican Senate seats up for election in 2026. Democrats only need to flip 4 seats to gain a supermajority. Before Trump's legal meltdown, Republicans were confident they could hold most of their seats. Now they are in panic mode. Senators up for re-election are being asked constantly whether they support Trump. If they say yes, they lose moderate voters. If they say no, they lose the MAGA base. There is no good answer. Several Republican senators have announced they will not seek re-election. They see the writing on the wall. They would rather retire than lose, or then be forced to defend Trump during a campaign. The Republican Senate Campaign Committee has pulled funding from several races because they believe those seats are lost. They are triaging, trying to save the seats that are still competitive. It is electoral disaster management. The House is in similar shape. Republicans currently hold a narrow majority. The generic ballot, which asks voters whether they plan to vote for a Republican or Democrat for Congress, shows Democrats leading by 11 points. That is a wave election margin. If those numbers hold, Democrats will not just win the House. They will win it decisively with a 30 or 40 seat majority. House Republicans in swing districts are terrified. They are running ads that do not mention Trump. They are trying to localize their campaigns and distance themselves from the national party. But it is not working. Voters see them as Trump Republicans. And Trump Republicans are losing. Gubernatorial races are also being affected. Several Republican governors who were favored to win re-election are now in toss-up races. Voters are soured on the entire Republican brand. The association with Trump is toxic. The long-term damage to the party could last a generation. Young voters are watching Trump's collapse and forming opinions about Republicans that will stick for decades. The Republican Party is being redefined in their minds as the party of chaos, corruption, and incompetence. Those are hard perceptions to overcome. Political analysts are comparing this to the 1974 post-Watergate election, when Democrats won massive majorities after Nixon resigned, or the 2008 election, when Obama won a historic victory after the financial crisis destroyed the Republican brand. Trump's legal meltdown could be a similar inflection point, a moment when one party is so damaged that it takes years to recover. Here is what you need to watch for over the next 30 days because the campaign is about to enter its terminal phase. First, watch for additional campaign resignations. If more senior staff walk away, if field directors or state coordinators quit, it signals that the operation is collapsing entirely. Second, watch for Trump to replace his campaign manager with a loyalist. If he brings in someone with no professional campaign experience but absolute personal loyalty, it means he has given up on winning and is focused only on personal grievance. Third, watch for polling data. If Trump's approval drops below 30%, he will be the most unpopular president in modern polling history. At that point, Republican senators will start openly calling for him to resign or step aside. Fourth, watch for primary challengers. If a credible Republican announces a primary challenge to Trump for the 2028 nomination, it signals that the party has decided Trump is finished. Fifth, watch for donor defections. If major Republican donors publicly announce they are withholding support from Trump, it cuts off his remaining financial lifeline. Sixth, watch for rally attendance. If Trump holds a rally and only a few hundred people show up, it demonstrates that even his most loyal supporters have lost interest. Seventh, watch for state party actions. If state Republican parties start passing resolutions distancing themselves from Trump or calling for new leadership, it shows the grassroots turning against him. Eighth, watch for Trump's rhetoric. If he becomes increasingly desperate, if he starts making wilder claims or more inflammatory statements, it indicates he knows he is losing and is lashing out. Trump's biggest mistake was not the fraud itself. It was not the inflated property values or the false financial statements. Those were crimes, but they were old crimes that might have stayed buried if he had not become president. Trump's biggest mistake was refusing to settle the New York case on January 2nd. That decision turned a manageable problem into an existential crisis. It turned a campaign that had a fighting chance into a campaign that is already over. Political strategists will study this decision for decades. They will teach it in campaign management courses as an example of how ego destroys electoral prospects. They will use it as a cautionary tale about the difference between fighting and winning. Trump chose to fight. He believed that fighting made him look strong. He believed that his base would rally around him if he portrayed himself as a victim of persecution. He was wrong. Voters do not reward candidates who are consumed by personal legal battles. They do not elect presidents who cannot govern because they are fighting with courts and prosecutors. They want competence. They want stability. They want leadership. Trump offers none of that. His campaign is a dumpster fire fueled by ego and denial. His approval rating is in free fall. His staff is abandoning him. His donors have dried up. His base is eroding. His legal troubles are multiplying, and all of it could have been avoided. All of it traces back to one decision on January 2nd. The decision to refuse a settlement that would have made the problem go away. The decision to let pride override strategy. The decision that will end his campaign and possibly his political career. The mistake has been made. The damage is done. The only question now is how long Trump continues fighting a battle he has already lost, and how much destruction he causes to his party and his country on the way down. Subscribe to stay ahead of this story. Hit the bell icon so you are notified when the next development breaks. Share this with everyone who needs to understand that we are not watching a campaign anymore. We are watching a political suicide. We are watching a candidate destroy himself through his own decisions, and we are watching it happen in real time.